Shelby Forbes and you're watching Channel 11 News. Today we are reflecting on the Qantas workers' strikes of 2011 that caused 447 flight cancellations around the world and 68,000 passengers stranded. This dispute was between Qantas pilots, ground staff, engineers, Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association, Transport Workers Union, Australian and International Pilots Association, and Qantas management as a result of Qantas outsourcing jobs and paying working staff low wages. The Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association and the Transport Workers Union got involved in this dispute to support the Qantas workers and set up a secret ballot to formulate the strike. On the 23rd of August 2010, Qantas workers were suspicious that the airline was outsourcing to other countries for cheaper workers. This was the start of a drawn-out dispute between the Qantas workers and the Qantas management. On the 15th of February 2011, the unions lodged a long list of claims which included the company outsourcing for cheaper workers. 15th of March 2011, Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association applied to Fair Work Australia for orders to authorise a secret ballot of its members for industrial action. The action to include strikes of up to 48 hours, stop work meetings, work to rule, overtime bans, bans on higher duties, refusing to feed data into software, and similar. 9th of May 2011, after the union claimed bargaining negotiations with the airline had failed, members of Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association stopped work from 1.5 hours in the morning and for half an hour in the afternoon, as well as refusing other certain duties. 27th of July 2011, Fair Work Australia authorised Transport Workers Union to hold a secret ballot for the protected industrial action. On the 16th of August 2011, Qantas announces a major restructure that would cut up to 1,000 jobs. It was said to establish a new Asian-based premium airline. Jetstar would establish Jetstar Japan, with Qantas holding 42% stake. Qantas said they would reduce flights on the Kangaroo route between Hong Kong, Bangkok and London and delay the arrival of 6 of its planned fleet of 20 A380 fleet until as late as 2021. 5th of October 2011, Qantas declares acts of intimidation from unions and other employees against workers who worked during the industrial action. On the 29th of October 2011, Qantas Airlines CEO Alan Joyce announces the grounding of the entire Qantas domestic fleet prior to an employee lockout in the response to enterprise bargaining actions and claims of 3 of its unions. 21st of November 2011, Qantas and the unions failed to reach agreements in the prescribed 21-day timeframe, causing there to be no change to Fair Work Australia or industrial relation. The first issue that was identified while researching this dispute was the grounding of Qantas fleet by Chief Executive Alan Joyce, stranding 68,000 people worldwide, appending the plans of tens of thousands more, and lost an unquantifiable number of future bookings. Qantas left thousands of passengers stranded in Australia and around the world, insisting that the airline didn't need to take the extreme action of grounding its fleet. The consumer group Choice says Qantas has offered compensation to each of the 22,000 international passengers stranded by the snap grounding of Qantas planes, and those yet to travel have been left hanging on for hours on call centre lines. Some world leaders attending the CHOGM conference in Perth were among the tens of thousands of stranded passengers. Jetstar says it has assisted 3,200 Qantas customers, and Anthony Albanese confirms Virgin Australia has put on 3,000 extra flights in one day as Qantas scrambles to get back in the air. More than 20,000 people took up Virgin's offer of discount fares. Etihad Airways will also operate Abu Dhabi, Bangkok, Sydney flights from the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of November to help clear the Qantas backlog. The weekend grounding caused an $80 million cost to Australian tourism, and the dispute had caused $70 million damage to the airline. This dispute, if continued, would have costed $15 million for every week that the dispute dragged on. Because of the widespread effect on customers, forward booking was subject to nosedive. The airline and Fair Work Australia had to deal with every issue that had occurred. Fair Work Australia ruled that all strike action of all three unions should be terminated. Joyce says that he rang all the Qantas's biggest customers and made personal apologies for the actions, and the passengers who changed their travel destination, rescheduled flights or had them cancelled as a result of the Qantas fleet grounding are being offered rebooking and refund options. Alan Joyce said he was activating the one form of industrial action available to him to bring home the unions the seriousness of their actions and to convince them to deal sensibly. In response to the union's industrial action, I announced that under the provision of the Fair Work Act, Qantas will lock down all those employees who will be covered by the agreements currently being negotiated with the ALAEA, the TWU and the AIPA. I have informed the government of this. The unions went to extreme measures to try and support the Qantas workers. The claims lodged by the unions caused many Qantas customers to flee from the company. Mr. Joyce said customers were now fleeing from the airline with key high-value bookings on the East Coast, down by 25% on the same period last year. International bookings have also fallen, with November bookings nearly down 10% on where they're expected to be, when Qantas International is already making significant losses. Qantas accuses the unions of deliberately destabilising the company and warned there was no end in sight. During the dispute, the unions and their members from the Qantas staff conducted acts of intimidation and workplace bullying toward the other staff who turned up to work. The actions of Qantas management didn't fall under any unlawful terms, as the grounding of the fleet and the lockout of staff were actions done to save the company from bankruptcy and falsely claimed information. The pilots, ground staff and engineers who were on strike did not do anything wrong by law, as they contacted Fair Work Australia in order to conduct the strikes. In the end Qantas CEO Alan Joyce made the correct decision to ground the fleet. His actions were quick and professional, unlike his opposition unions. As a result of this large 10-month dispute, it is hoped that in the future a group will be created that will be able to deal with disputes and other serious situations in a quicker and easier manner. And coming up next on Channel 11 News.